Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 9th webinar for local and regional governments towards COP25 on 18 September, Wednesday, 2019. It's presented by ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability in its capacity as the focal point of local governments and the municipal authorities constituency. Today, we will be having our webinars as usual in the morning of European time zone with our colleagues from the Global Covenant of Mayors. On the screen, you see the correct person, but typing is wrong. It will be Shea O'Neill joining us. I apologize for this small typo. And in the afternoon, we will be joined by Jordan Harris from the incoming COP25 presidency. And we thank you all, both of them for joining us in today's sessions. Before we started to go through the agenda of today, I just would like to remind that I would, throughout the session, I would both be the presenter but also moderate. As our usual practice, these webinars start with all attendees on mute. So that we can ensure a smooth presentation. We encourage you to type your questions or raise your hands in the appropriate box in your webinar modules, so that in the Q&A session we can easily address this. Those who wish, we can also unmute them in the Q&A part so that they can also intervene points verbally as well, but you can also contribute by chat box as well, or question box. No, question box is better. Chat box is more communication with the team. So with this, without further ado, I'd like to take you through the agenda of today. For those who have not yet joined our webinars before, what we are using, what we are having in this hour is a review of the agenda of the year, how we start, how we are engaging in the UN process, UN climate change negotiations, and what has been achieved since the last webinar. These webinars are held monthly, and all the presentations before as well as the recordings are all available online, so that you can go back and check the previous updates. For today's webinar, we will have a discussion on the achievements or progress since the last webinar that was on 21st of August. This will focus on highlights of the regional climate weeks, the sustainable city standing committee on finance forum on climate finance and sustainability. We will be very shortly reviewing that. We will just catch you up on the climate, land, nature nexus that is going on in the global negotiations. There will be a special slot on, as usual, UN Climate Action Summit, and that will be also the moment where Shea will share with us the expected agenda in New York. And then we will briefly touch upon the preparations towards COP25. That is our agenda for today. So we are in a yearly process. For those who are familiar, let's refresh our minds that every year, end of the year in December or November, one national government, which is designed by the appropriate regional negotiations, take over the presidency of the COP, and the presidency is responsible for the implementation of the year-round the outcome of the decisions of the COP. They take the ownership in political leadership, and then in the middle of the year, negotiators meet in Bonn for assessment of the progress of technical level and preparation of at the end of the year. And during this period, the next COP, the next host of the COP, define their presidency, and they started to take their preparations so that they both host the summit, but also they started to implement the outcomes. Since the Paris Agreement, there is another new element, which is in addition to the presidencies of the COPs, which is either ministerial level or at appropriate level. Then there's also the champions, which is the ones who are following up with the non-party stakeholders on action agenda. So under these conditions, we know this year political leadership of the COP24 presidency is under the responsibility of the Polish presidency, led by State Secretary of Minister of Energy, Mr. Michał Kurtyka, and the special envoy is Tomasz Khrushchev, again from Poland. The incoming presidency is led by Chilean government. They had assigned Mrs. Carolina Schmidt, the Minister of Environment, and Gonzalo Munoz is the high-level champion from the Chilean presidency. When we concluded the last COP in Katowice, our flagship and mobilization was the Talanoa dialogues, where the countries were able to discuss the Paris Agreement for the first time in their cities, in their countries. That was a result of our advocacy over the last year. So during the 2018, we had achieved a huge mobilization. We had hosted 60 sessions in 40 countries, and the COP decided that these dialogues, the experience from the Talanoa dialogues, could be valuable for countries to consider their improvement of their NDCs, either implementation or raising their ambition. So that is what we achieved. Based on these outcomes, we have our regular engagement modalities in the UN climate change process, and we also have the political priorities for the negotiation agendas as of today on the table. As regular engagement, we have showcasing our information of our climate action of local and regional governments through reporting platforms throughout the year-round engagement, but we also host our own summits and events led by local and regional governments. We want to contribute in the consultations, the workshops or sessions, in-session meetings. We also contribute in the design of the Marrakesh Partnership, which is the action agenda. And finally, we contribute into the decision-making. While we know that it is in the shoulders of the ministers or negotiators, we provide our input through interventions, statements, verbal or in written form, and we also connect to the negotiator through Friends of Cities, which has evolved now to the Friends of Multi-Level Action since June 2019 here. In terms of the annual and negotiations, we would like to focus on NDC review process and the improvement process, building on the official decision of the COP24. There will be discussions on localizing the climate finance. We will touch upon that. And we have to continue to raise ambition. Climate neutrality is a definition in the Paris Agreement, but especially in 2019, we have a huge mobilization through climate emergency, which is becoming very, very popular, both from citizen engagement, but also from political level as well. Let's recall the Chilean government has defined originally 7 priorities, and after the meetings in July in Bonn, in June in Bonn, they have improved their vision, and they have included specifically an agenda and a discussion on cities, which is exciting, of course, and we will touch upon that in the preparations for the COP25. Throughout the year, this is the 9th month of the year, we have been engaging in numerous events. These are mainly grouped as our engagement and negotiations through LGMA. We are participating in UN FCC-led processes. Then we have other UN agencies, the other UN processes, which is also very, very active this year. We had been in the LGMA networks hosting numerous summits, numerous meetings like the Urban 20 or Resident Cities Congress or ICA or R20. And now the next couple of months, we will see in October the C40 World Summit in Copenhagen in October, and at the same time in November, UCLG World Congress will be held in Durban. These will be milestones where we have our own engagements. In between, there will also be the Seoul Mayors Forum in October. These will be the opportunities where we review our positions and our collaboration, and then communicate to the UN. Inside the UN process this year, we was very busy with the UN Environment Assembly and the UN Habitat Assembly. We had also the first time local and regional governments in the desertification COP, and we have also the parallel process, especially on HLPF, the high-level political forum, as well as the negotiation on biodiversity. This year was particularly important because in May, just before the European Parliament elections, there was a huge mobilization of the Fridays for Future, which really changed the result of the European Parliament to a great deal. And by that time, there's also an elevation of this process, which now it announced as Global Climate Strike on the 20th of September, which is 2 days later. And there will be an additional update how we are engaging in this process as well. Uh, Regional climate weeks. The first one was in March in Africa, in Ghana. Over the past months, we had another meeting in Latin America and Caribbean, former Latin American Caribbean in Salvador. This meeting was very unique for a number of reasons. For the first time, a UN Climate Regional Week was hosted or co-hosted by a city who is hosting this event, which means they also provided political and technical and even financial resources. In concrete terms, the city of Salvador and mayor of Salvador had been very ambitious to host this event. Those who may remember, there was back and forth during the year. The Brazilian government was not originally planning to host it, but then there was a huge pressure, and this was good that city of Salvador also took this leadership. The city hall turned into the venue of the Regional Climate Week, which was again unique. This was the first time that is happening. That was the first NDC dialogue with all levels of subnational governments, including local, municipal, regional governments, and state governments. That was, I think, a result of the leadership of the city of Salvador. There were numerous sessions, and there was the first time a mayor's panel at the Regional Climate Week in the UNFCCC context. The second one was held in early September in Bangkok for Asia Pacific region. The unique thing is this time it was hosted by a UN regional commission. UNESCO was the venue and the official partner. The city of Bangkok was not that much involved as the way Salvador was involved, but still there were representations of local and regional governments. We had participated in the additional dialogue of NDCs. This time it was expanded even further, not just on the local regional governments, but also other stakeholders like private sector and also NGOs were there. And the high level session of this Regional Climate Week in the closing was also this event gave the opportunity for ICLEI, South Asia Regional Director, Deputy Regional Director address on behalf of local and regional governments, which shows our continuity of our leadership as a constituency. Land, climate, nature nexus was that we mentioned during the next couple of months until the end of 2020. There will be numerous processes where especially interactions of climate in terms of other elements, especially the Rio Conventions like land degradation or desertification, as well as biodiversity, is becoming more and more evident to ensure an appropriate synergy. So within this regard, the first local and regional governments, they were at the UN Desertification or Land Degradation COP was hosted in Delhi in early October. And this was remarkable because that brought from all continents different levels of leaders from 25 cities and regions, as well as in total 100 participants from UN, national governments, and civil society. The good thing is that that was aiming to push the agenda of the engagement of local and regional governments in the desertification process. And we are very happy that the Delhi Declaration, which is the outcome of the COP in Delhi, has a special paragraph on local governments, how to engage them, how to encourage them. This is providing additional evidences that our advocacy is paying off. The national governments are hearing more and more our efforts. And the additional good news is that the UN Desertification Secretariat will take these outcomes to the UN Climate Summit as well. So that is an additional entry door, especially in nature-based solutions as well. In the biodiversity front, the official negotiations for the COP15 in China in Kunming is advanced. There was the prep meeting in end of August in Nairobi. That was the moment where Chinese government and UN Secretariat of the Convention on Biodiversity announced the date and the title of the Biodiversity Conference. It is pretty ambitious. Ecological civilization is the theme, and that is in line with the expectation of local and regional governments, where ICLEI Cities Biodiversity Center is leading since 2008. The last COP in in Egypt in 2018, we were asking the parties to the Biodiversity Convention to make the Kunming summit as the Paris moment for biodiversity. And this vision from the host country, Chinese government, is giving this impression that this COP will be particularly unique. That is even more interesting. The negotiation documents refer, original expectation was a 10-year framework because of the Aichi targets are concluding in 2010, 2020. But the new draft documents refer to a vision for 2050, which is the same vision in the Paris Agreement, which shows the biodiversity and nature is coming in almost equal footing with climate processes, which is strengthening of course, our sustainability efforts because they are intertwined. We are living in an era of urgency and emergency, and therefore we are hopeful that there will be positive outcomes. Throughout this process, ICLEI has invited Mayor of Montreal to be leading as our global ambassador for local biodiversity. She has been kindly accepting this role, and over the next couple of months, she will take this messages both at the UN summits, but also at the C40 summit, as well as in the UCLG summit as appropriate. The negotiations in biodiversity post-2020 framework, the local and regional governments engagements were led by cities by their center, as well as advisory group of subnational governments, where secretariat is led by our regions 4. Kobe Brandt and Jean Lemire was the key representatives, spokespersons. They have shared their interventions, and there was a very positive response for our 10-point action plan for our vision for post-2020. The Climate Finance and Sustainable Cities Forum, which is the annual forum of the Standing Committee on Finance, was held in Beirut on 12th and 13th of September. This was also an official recognition and concrete engagement and empowerment of local and regional governments in the climate business. That's why we are very, very excited. There was a huge mobilization of local and regional governments as a constituency. ICLEI and ICLEI and C40 is acting as the focal points of this process. And in that regard, there was a good diversity of representation from C40, ICLEI, FMDV, R20, CCFLA, UNABIDA, GCOM, but as well as individual representatives from cities of Paris, Johannesburg, Accra, Quito, Metapec, New South Wales, Brasilia, and Gisa. The outcome document is being prepared. The UN FCCC COP25 will receive a report from the Standing Committee on Finance, and the conclusions will be directly presented to the COP, which is additional effort for our work. The global climate strike, as we have said, is becoming really a very, very popular, and it is being taken up by all actors of the society. In this regard, we are very happy to see the very concrete and sincere and really substantial support from local and regional governments worldwide. ICLEI and Mayor of Bonn has also, in his capacity as Mayor of Bonn and in his capacity as President of ICLEI, had developed a strategy that the employees of the administration of City of Bonn and ICLEI World Secretariat will be allowed to participate in this global strike if they follow appropriate administrative procedures. But this is a signal how leadership is important. We hope there will be additional examples like that. The cities are encouraging their staff to participate. This photo shows you, this was taken up from the screen of the service center of City of Bonn, which says that department is closed on 20th of September, which means this concrete outcome is coming up. So a lot of staff of cities will also be joining, of course, keeping some emergency services open. But this is showing that it's not anymore a strike of the youth. It is a collective effort. It is not a strike against one of each other, but it's a collective strike that the business as usual is unacceptable. We have to accelerate our climate action, and we have to act in the spirit of the climate emergency. So we are happy to share additional updates from other cities in similar regards. Just yesterday, the Global Climate Action Portal was released by UN Climate Secretariat. This was originally a NASCA platform, which was kicked off in 2014. ICLEI led carbon climate registry was taken up as the one of the first data providers, and now it's expanded to numerous data providers. And now this is also connected to the NDCs of the countries. That is now giving us the opportunity that we can now relate all our efforts to the NDCs, hopefully in a revised version by 2020. We are now coming to the climate agenda. For those who are familiar, there's 9 working groups. Each of them are led by national governments and UN institutions. We have a dedicated track for cities, infrastructure and local action led by Kenya and Turkey and supported by UN Habitat. Mobilization of local and regional governments are coordinated by the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy. There is additional coming up news that you will hear more. For example, the flagship report of Coalition for Urban Transitions will be released on 19th of September with an embargoed, which is already presented to the press. This will set the scene on climate emergency, and we are excited that this would help the debates in the Climate Action Summit, both to the national governments but also our constituency. With this, I'd like to give the floor to Shea, in the sense that now we have 4 major initiatives from the ICLEI track, and there are several other initiatives coming up. Official information will be released soon by the UN, but Shea may take us with what we are expecting to do in New York over the next couple of days. Shea, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Yunus. Yeah, so I'll briefly go over some of the events that we're doing in New York. And all of these events have been organized with all of our many partners and involve many of the mayors who are attending the summit, which is great. So starting on Saturday, we have the Science for Cities event, which will really focus on the IPCC report and talking about getting to 1.5 degrees Celsius. We have several mayors who will be presenting on that panel, and also I think Marika from ICLEI, which is great. And then we have the afternoon of the 21st, which will include 3 different panels. One on commitments and impact, so the commitments that cities have already made and the impact that will and can have. And then we have the nature-based solutions panel in cities and the panel on decentralized finance. So we have several of our mayors who are presenting throughout these panels in the afternoon and are really going to be bringing the message of what cities have already done and what they're working on doing, and what support they need to continue that work going forward. And then on Sunday, we have several events again. One of the biggest ones is what Yunus was just talking about. It says on this sheet, the CUT report launch, but it is now called Climate Emergency Urban Opportunity. And this is a report that was written by the Coalition for Urban Transitions and aims to support national government's efforts to unlock economic and social benefits of inclusive, sustainable cities. And one of the key outcomes of this report is that if we can have the support from national governments and cities working together, that by 2050, we can reduce 90% of emissions, if we can make that happen. So some exciting news coming out of that, and at this report we'll have from our board, Mayor Soa from Accra being one of the panelists who's presenting the report, and several others. And I think there might be an opportunity to send out a more detailed agenda of who is all presenting on what panels and speaking to what. Also on the 22nd, yes, we're on the 22nd, several other events that are happening throughout the day that are organized by our different partners. I know there's one by Focused on Health, which is with the WHO, and we also have Mayor Soa from from cities presenting on that, speaking about a city's commitment to health and air quality and quality of life, and several other events that are organized by our partners throughout the Sunday during the day. And then on the 23rd, that's the big day. And we have been pushing hard to have representation from cities speaking throughout the day on different topics. I know that there will be representation from a couple of mayors on the stage throughout the day talking about different things. So that is great. Mayor Risma from Surabaya speaking on transportation, and I think the Mayor of Copenhagen speaking on the cooling initiative. And we have several other mayors in the room, which will hopefully be able to have some interventions throughout the day, really bringing that voice of cities to the summit and making sure that all of their commitments and asks are heard. So I don't know. So I'll go back to some of the initiatives. I think that was on the previous slide that Eunice had, that we're working on bringing to the summit. And I think this will also be spoken about later on, but we have put together a climate emergency toolkit for cities. This has been in partnership with many of the organizations, ICLEI, C40, UN Habitat, Climate Alliance. There's many cities doing great work on this, and obviously it's a very relevant topic going into the summit. And so this toolkit will be going out to all cities and partners, talking about how the practical steps of how you could declare a climate emergency as a city and what that looks like, some communications tools to spread the message. And one of the very relevant issues of this time, which relates to a climate emergency, is the situation in the Amazon right now. So we've also are sending out a toolkit to help cities support the cities in the Amazon who are dealing with this situation right now. On September 5th, there was a event held, the Amazon Cities Pact, where they decided on several measures that would help promote sustainable development within the Amazon and protecting the region. And so our board has unanimously endorsed this pact, and we'll be sending out some tools for amplification for other cities who can help support these cities in the Amazon and what they're calling for. So that's kind of a practical example of the situation on the climate emergency. And Eunice, I think I've gone over most things, but just let me know if I've missed anything that you want me to touch on.
Sure, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, especially your availability in a short notice. Marshall had been on the way to New York already, and once again, apologies for the typo, but I will correct, of course, in the next presentation. No, you have covered very well the whole efforts. Just to recall, especially also on the 22nd, there will be a special ICLEI track, which is the presentation of all the initiatives that Shea mentioned about the buildings, transport, urban poor, as well as finance. So this is a mobilization throughout this weekend of the New York summit in New York that will be preparing the leaders summit, which will be held at the leaders level, but to make sure the agenda definitely has a strong component of multi-level collaboration. So we're excited, as you heard from Shea, more is coming soon. Stay tuned. It will be a busy agenda, and we are hoping that the end result will help that national governments will be committed to revise their NDCs and raise their ambitions. So just one additional point to know that the networks with the Global Covenant of Mayors in the process of engaging in the ICLEI track, has also shared their priorities of or these initiatives to the UN Secretary General's team a couple of weeks ago. This was mainly saying that yes, our initiatives are great, but you should make sure that these are now integrated into your NDCs. We would like to have more platform. I think that paid off. We are now having very good visibility moments. We encourage them to listen to the cut report as Shia mentioned. I think there will be a good response as well. The finance, we'll see how much things will shape up, and connecting air quality would also be another topic. For those who are following these processes, for those who would like to have a day-to-day agenda, we know GCOM website will also be uploaded soon, or the summit website will be uploaded soon, but there is also an update as of today available on the ICLEI US website. And ICLEI World Secretariat also made a blog or released a blog that makes the two summits now. We are not only for climate action, but we are also focusing on SDG Summit on the 24th, which is coordinated by the Global Task Force, Secretariat by the UCLG. So after the 23rd of Climate Summit, we will move to the SDG Summit, and we are saying that SDGs can only be delivered if there is an ambitious climate agenda, that these two are intertwined. So that would be our engagements, and stay tuned for updates from your networks, and I'm sure participants of this call also are actively involved. So if there are any updates from your side, feel free to address during the Q&A session. Now this is the last slide. While it's the last slide, it is heavily now coming up to a shape. There is one important update in the COP25 agenda. Is the Ministers of Transport was originally announced for the 3rd of December, but now there's a new announcement saying that this will be in the 6th of December. That is what we were also pushing as a recommendation to the UN FCC, because there should be an interaction between the transport ministers and the environment ministers, and of course practically it's too far away from each other, so there should be closeness in proximities. The ministers of environment, climate and finance will come on the second week. This gives us also the expectation that our engagement will be in the first couple of days, 5 of 6 of December, through an urban mobility focused engagement. And then we will continue, especially on Monday and Tuesday, 9th and 10th of December, through circular economy, NDCs and climate, these different topics. What we are aware now, Ministry or the COP25 presidency, Chilean government, is also rolling out an ambitious agenda to prepare the regional engagement from Latin America and Caribbean. By the time everyone is in New York, there will be a huge discussion in Colombia. Then there will be additional pre-COP in Costa Rica. These will be the moments where the national and regional associations will also be collaborating with the Chilean presidency, and they will bring their conclusions to the COP. We are in that discussion with the presidency, the exact moment and an exact modality. There is very likely to be a local and regional governments day. Our hope that it will be as close as possible to the beginning of the week, because that is the moment where we can shape a lot of things as inputs to the negotiations. The more we get closer to the end of the week, we will lose our opportunities, and many of the international participants will be leaving, so we will lose the weight of our unified cooperation and coalitions. Therefore, we're in discussion with the presidency team. There's a very openness from their side. We're checking with the national associations and the regional leadership, such as the Global Covenant leadership in the region, as well as FLACMA and ICLEI South Asia Secretariat, South America Secretariat, and ICLEI's Mexican Caribbean Secretariat. So more updates we are expecting after New York agenda is over, because there will be several bilaterals. This will probably take shape by the end of next week. We will continue to share with you the updates over the emails, and in the next webinars we can provide you more information. The venue is announced. There will be a green zone, there will be a blue zone. That will be the model that was applied in Marrakesh in 2016 and in Bonn in 2017. Slight amendments. In this case, I think there will be a bigger space on the green zone. but we're hoping to have updates from the UNFCCC. There are side event applications for the UNFCCC. It is very likely there will not be a cities and regions pavilion, but especially the Chilean pavilion and other pavilions like EU, Germany, the multinational development banks, China, which have always hosted specific cities-related sessions, would very likely continue to take such offer this kind of spaces. So more to come up soon. As I said, early October will be the times when we can shape many of the things. This concludes our webinar today. We are now around 20 minutes of Q&A session. To recap, you can reach to the previous webinars and presentations. You can download the COP24 report that summarizes our achievements from Katowice and the agenda for this year. Recalling the achievements of the Paris Agreement, you should not forget Paris Agreement is unique because it is both having an ambitious target of climate neutrality by 2050, but as well as a dedicated paragraph on cities and all levels of engagement of all levels of governments. So Paris Agreement is the first multi-level climate agreement with an ambitious target. That's why our commitments of the cities and regions are not anymore a voluntary effort, but it's part of their legal and moral duty. That is the key message. And of course, climate emergency, as Shea mentioned, is giving us the opportunity that these kind of movements, climate neutrality, needs political support. This brings all party, cross-party coalitions in the councils at the city, regional, and government, federal level, national level. Therefore, adoption of climate emergencies and connecting these efforts to the climate neutrality targets are feeding each other. If you have a really good, ambitious climate neutrality target, you can easily say that this is a response to climate emergency. Or vice versa, if your city is adopting climate emergency declarations, you can ask them that, okay, now it's time to implement, then go for climate neutrality. That is what will be the essence of the toolkit that Shea mentioned in the GCOM preparations. Therefore, we recommend you to take this very seriously. We have hundreds of cities adopting climate neutral emergency targets. Many of them are also close to our networks. There are numerous cities who have started to track their climate neutrality targets by 2050. So it's an exciting moment. These are now giving us the forces so that we could raise our ambition and prove the people on the streets are now more hopeful that there will be accelerated action and not a business as usual, but much more a mobilization collectively. So with this, I am now concluding this round. I was wondering whether there's any questions. I see now first one from Anthony, Anthony Pierce from WWF. Just opening, Anthony. I'm not able to open it. I cannot read the question now. Anthony, do you want to be? WWF will certainly be hosting cities-related events. I think you refer to COP25. Yes, we are still in. Pavilion of WWF was always very powerful. It was also especially bringing the US subnationals and stakeholders. I assume now you're expanding probably to the Brazilians and many more to come. So let's see. It's Panda Pavilion now. It's announced. Okay, Anthony, if you would like to share any updates from your side, feel free to. We can unmute you. But this was the input from Anthony, and One Planet Cities Challenge, of course, was also a huge mobilization effort throughout the years, and more to come. So thanks, Anthony, for that. And now Anthony confirms that he doesn't have further updates. As we have said, everyone is in the making of fine-tuning their preparations. So bear with us. More updates are in the process. This is what we can say informally, but formal procedures announcements will come soon. So please, we recommend you to stay connected to your networks or your partnerships, and we as ICLEI, as the LGMA focal point, will be happy to help the bridging this information towards COP and beyond. Anything else do we have along these lines? Yeah, the floor is open now, but as long as we are fine, we are comfortable, we can also cut short, because every minute is precious, valuable nowadays. We do not have to Stay until the end of the hour. I see we have 15 more minutes, but maybe share any additional remarks that after my inputs that you may have think that it was missing or to strengthen or improve or revised. Feel free to add your final remarks.
Thanks, Eunice. No, I think you did a great job at covering. Just to reiterate that I'll send some information about both the climate emergency toolkit and the Amazon Cities Pact toolkit. And if there's anything else that anyone wanted more information about, they can feel free to get in touch.
Yes, that's very good. As I said, we have another webinar today at 4 p.m. at the European summer time. We will have contributions from the Chilean presidency, and by that time, when we receive input from Share, we will include in the PowerPoint, and the version that you will receive with the links of the PowerPoint presentation that you see on the screen would be further updated and improved. So that you can see this. Be aware, many of those are in the last fine-tuning. The official ones could come tomorrow and on Friday. That what you would see is maybe like teasers so far. I have some input from Agath. Hi Agath, good to see you. Yunus, you mentioned discussing COP25 calendar with the presidency. Any chance this may change the tentative market partnership agenda, especially roundtables? I think you raised a very good point. What we know, Agath, if we can also check with you, Marrakesh Partnership has already sent an invite to the participants to have a session on the Saturday 21st afternoon, 4 to 6 p.m. If you are there, it would be very good if you can attend, you or other colleagues who are there. We will do our best to cover because it's overlap with the GCOM subnational mobilization session, so it's a bit tricky. And I think that is exactly the type of things we'd like to clarify before leaving New York. I personally believe there is a need to revise this. I don't know how technically they will go into the details at this event on 21st of Saturday, but certainly there will be an additional, I guess, technical meeting that Marrakesh Partnership will soon announce. I personally will not be available on Saturday. I'm arriving a bit late, but I know there will be a lot of delegations from GCOM and C40, ICLEI, UCLG. So it would be good to keep an eye on that. And let's hope that the fine tuning of this now sessions will be consistent with our mobilization. We all know this year is unique. There are four UN summits in Nairobi, two of them Nairobi, the July New York. Now we have a huge summit in climate summit in New York. Then we go to Copenhagen. Then we go to Durban. Then we are in the between. So obviously our presentation in Chile will be representative. We are not aiming to have a big summit as such. Therefore, we will encourage the regional mobilization. There will definitely be global leaders and staff of experts of our members and networks. So our hope is that we can combine those agendas as appropriately, so that 9 and 10 will be the peak moments for us. Maybe on Saturday and Sunday, and Saturday and Friday could be additional moments, especially on urban mobility. That's our hope. I feel there is a good response, but let's see. You never know, and it's of course the presidency's priorities as well. So that is my response. And anything you would like to add, Agat? Feel free to take the floor.
Yes. Hi, Eunice. Hi, everybody. Thank you. No, your answer was really comprehensive, and I think that we're looking at the COP schedule a similar way as you, with a tentative focus of our activities probably around the 9th or 10th. I know these tentative dates have been in the Marrakesh Partnership agenda for a really long time, so I don't know how realistically feasible they will be able to move them. But of course, we can voice our concerns or preferences. So I agree with you. We're looking at it with possibly a concentration of activities around those days. And thank you for the
Yes.
presentation. Yeah.
No, you're welcome. Thanks a lot. And we know GCOM and other partners, we are discussing with the pavilion hosts how to manage, navigate, so that we have a nice lineup of our events, our announcements, or our interaction. So we'll see. I think we're getting there, and I was particularly impressed with the presidency's preparations. I hope Jordan, when he joins in the afternoon, could give a glimpse of it. They are really, really demonstrating a good leadership. I was telling to them when I had this call with them in Latin America as the de-urbanized continent of the world had always been very, very remarkable for our calls. I remember 2010 in Cancun, we had the first COP decision in Lima. We had this NASCA announcement and all these mobilization of the UN summit was into the shape, and president of Lima COP is now leading WWF, our the well-respected partners, pushing us, and he's part of the UN Climate Action Summit. So these leadership are definitely very helping us. Therefore, I'm pretty excited for a good outcome from Chile to show that the NDCs can be better implemented and be more ambitious if governments take on board local and regional governments and urban action or local action appropriately, that by the time they reach to UK, now this goes to Agathe, where you are based, we could have an even more ambitious COP. That's all our eyes are now there. They're already showing leadership that they have defined their president or incoming president. UK is pretty ambitious for that. We'll see how things will happen starting from 1st of November, this remarkable calendar date for some reasons, as you can imagine. But at least we hope the climate agenda will continue to be ambitious and UK will continue to show the leadership there. Okay, good. Then let me really conclude with this input. Many thanks for all of you joining us. Feel free to stay connected with us, and we will be in touch with you for further updates. Those who travel to New York, have safe flights. Look forward to see you there. It will be exciting moments. I remember our 2014 Climate Summit engagement, where we launched the Global Compact. At that time, it was Compact of Mayors. How we have really showed our strength and unified voice. I think we are taking to a next level, and through this opportunity, I'd like to commend all partners, the GCOM, which is actually a baby of the Climate Summit, as we said, Compact of Mayors evolving into Global Covenant with the European Covenant. So 5 years later, it is impressive what we are now achieving and demonstrating. So this is a pride for all our members, our staff, our leaders. So it is pretty good that we are making progress. But the question is that we should be a bit faster than the rest of the others on the other side of the fence, so in order to balance their bad moves and make sure that we turn our civilization into a low carbon and nature friendly. Okay, with that, I thank you once again. Good. Have a nice day. Have a nice evening. Have a nice afternoon, and look forward to stay in touch.